So I always,
2 months ago
I don't
when
want to circumvent anybody.
Well, I got time, so if you need to move people up in the agenda, I'm sure open to it, so.
No, have at it.
Okay. So, back in 2021, we finished phase one of the project. Some of the board members, is there new board members that aren't familiar with the project at all? From the inventory project that we did?
everybody's heard about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So this presentation, I kept it all together. I just, in the report, I took phase one and we just continued it into phase two. And so we added 4 more basins out of the 3 that we already did with phase one, followed the same protocol as far as collecting data. Just to summarize, we basically created a GIS geodatabase and a ranking system within that to create a prioritization tool of ranking sites that would be basically the biggest bang for your buck for implementing green infrastructure, stormwater retrofits to improve stormwater water quality mainly, and some quantity throughout the basins in Rapid City. It's kind of what I just talked about. This presentation covers the methods, the drainage basins we selected, the results, and some of the future recommendations. I kept it all together as one, so we could, if somebody was to download this off of their site, they could kind of follow along for the whole project instead of phase one, phase two. I just combined it all together.
What you're saying is the final report includes the results from the first phase and the second.
Yep.
So the final report is inclusive of both of these phases, even though they were done as separate projects.
Absolutely.
Which
Yep.
I think is good logic.
Made sense to me, so you just have one document and you're not going back and forth, especially if somebody's in the field, like, oh, look at that phase one report and phase two report. It's just all combined into one. There's still the phase one report out there. I'm not going to go into great lengths then in discussing all the methods and all the ranking categories that we went through. If you guys had questions, I'll be more than happy to field those questions and answer them. But for sake of time, it'll get pretty lengthy if I go in and discuss the logic on each one. It's outlined in the report, pretty clear with the table and a description. So if we have further questions or questions right now, I'd be more than happy to answer it. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving along. Hold on, Dan. Andy? Oh, sorry, Chair.
How many more phases to the project?
None. The project's complete.
This is it.
Yep,
And this information is available to the public?
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, however, it's going to be through the website and,
Through the West Dakota website?
yep, so as public as that information is. So, yep.
Thank you.
The final report will be posted on our
I know.
website as always.
It's there now.
Right, yeah.
The final report is in.
Just-
Yeah. Okay.
just-
Have we made our final payment?
No.
He's got to finish tonight. Randy, you have another question?
I have an unpopular question.
Uh-oh.
Jason, how does your company that you work for benefit from this?
The company really didn't benefit from it. We started this project, other than paying me for my time, but we started this project as a School of Mines project, and I'm getting my PhD currently through the School of Mines, and so this was a School of Mines project, and then I'm not doing grant work through the School of Mines and stuff, so we just ran the phase 2 portion of the project through TerraSite. So they were just the,
Which is a consulting engineering company
yep,
here in Rapid.
they're a civil landscape architectural firm.
Oh, they're in Denver, Maryland.
Yeah, and so we ran this phase through that company.
So respectfully, they are benefiting, correct?
Well, sure.
Okay. But West Dakota is paying.
We're paying we're paying the consulting firm for him, since Jason went to work there, since he did
Correct.
the initial one, so we're,
Yeah.
Got
he's
it.
from, wouldn't make any sense to hire somebody new and start over, So, question?
And actually, had asked the school of mines if they would take on a second phase, and they really weren't interested in it because, you know, the first phase, it was basically a new thing. At this point, it's kind of repetitious. They said there's really no academic value, and so they really preferred to have it done this way. But that had been our first choice.
Yeah.
But
And they have
basically,
officially-
we're paying for his salary.
Yep.
Well, I think the school has a 40%, if not more, overhead that they
Oh, yeah.
automatically take out of any kind of grant money that comes into that school. And so,
Any more questions?
I just, you know, I'm popular, but I am not a fan. The laptop we paid for, taxpayers paid for, the GPS unit we paid for, are you using for other projects besides this?
well, the laptop fees were for part of phase 1, if I remember right.
Okay.
So.
Not trying to be
there's-
combative, but I am just asking in the interest of being a taxpayer that I'm not a fan of paying for equipment, especially when you work for a company that has means to pay for that, and it is benefiting that company, Mr. Chairman. On the record, that's all I got to say.
Go ahead and continue.
So these are the 7 basins that we inventoried. During phase 1 of the projects, we inventoried the Mead Hawthorne, the racetrack, and the Nola drainage basins. And then as part of phase 2, we did the South Canyon, Haynes Avenue, the Morningside Basin, and the downtown basin. So you can see we got the core basins of the downtown area covered, and then 2 outskirt basins to the east and to the west that we did the study with it.
Jason, I'll point out there are a number of other, going on 20 other named basins in the area, but in the decision-making process of where to work, most of those other basins, you know, have been developed after stormwater management became kind of a practice. So, you know, our perception was there really wasn't a need to do this in these other basins. So that's why we've only got.
Yeah, and those are through discussions with Pennington County and through discussions with the city of Rapid City. So they're all on board and supported this project and, you know, seen the value in the project. And so that's how we came to.
They provided data too for.
Yeah, they provided all the GIS data within there. So, you know, other than the licensing itself, all the data that the city has, they provided
Right.
at no cost. And usually, you know, a contractor, us at TerraSite, if we were to want that data, you'd have to go and pay for that data and acquire it from the city for, you know, any kind of proprietary benefit. But since this was, you know, an extension of a grant project, they still provided that information and that data at no cost.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a question. How long will this data be available to this board and to the community at large? Because we actually paid for equipment that helped gather this data. How long will it be available? Should be
Forever.
forever.
For eternity.
Got it.
So,
Yeah.
for the record, we have a device that has all the data on there.
Beautiful.
You're free to
Okay.
look at it,
We
take
paid-
it home,
we paid for
digest
that.
it, whatever you need to do. It has the whole entire geodatabase that I created. Anyone from the public can come get it, download that geodatabase onto their laptop, and be able to create the same study in Hill City if you wanted to. Keystone. Phillip. You know, I think Phillip might be outside of Pennington. Is it still inside? It might be kind of
Outside of our.
on that border. So I don't know how that would work.
The Cheyenne Rivers are.
Is as far as, you know, sharing it with anyone outside Pennington County, that's up to you guys. But it's all on that device, and once they download it, you could take that data and use it.
Thank you, Jason, I appreciate it.
So these are the results. Within those 7 basins, there was 876 sites that we inventoried. Based on the score of 4 to 5 throughout the ranking process, which we consider to be, your biggest bang for your buck and have the highest benefit to cost ratio to implement projects. So there's 255 sites throughout that study within the 7 basins. And this table is just a breakdown of each basin and how many sites were in each basin, and then the ranks 1 through 5 within each basin. And the ranks will make sense in the next few slides, and they're all color coded and show the actual points. So this basin is the Mead Hawthorne Basin. It's the first one that we did and kind of really developed and went back and forth and getting all the ranking categories dialed in and to come up with this process of ranking. So a rank of 1 is your most expensive, the least amount of bang for your buck. A rank of 5, the green ones, would be your highest rank, which would be your best sites to go and start looking at, and can we really implement this project within this area. The yellow square highlights just a concentration of where there's the most points that need stormwater retrofits with the least amount of downgradient stormwater management. So you can see in this lower half, we got detention ponds all over, and they've done a pretty good job. The city just increased the Robbinsdale detention pond, and so the downgradient stormwater management is pretty good versus coming through these 90-degree channels through here, and there's just a little wetland channel. So it's not as good through those areas. So this example here just shows what we could do. We got a whole entire parking lot over by, this is the old snowmobile place, the Honda place that was over on Campbell, or
East St. Pat,
East St.
Four
Pat.
Seasons Sports Center.
Yep, one more. So they got a concrete trickle channel draining this whole parking lot into the curb and gutter, which flows further south right down into Rapid Creek. So we could go in for a relatively low amount of money, and instead of draining to the road, we could put in a bioswale through here, let that water come into contact with earth, help infiltrate it and filter out the pollutants coming off of this parking lot, and it helps slow it down versus just straight to the curb and gutter, straight to the creek, and create problems all the way down the gradient. Yep. So this is just a blown up area of the kind of high priority area that had the highest concentration of sites that could have retrofits fairly easily done into them. Go ahead, Dan. So this site here, this is where the 90-degree turns I was talking about. I think it was 2019, there was a lot of flooding. I'm not exactly sure on the
2018.
2018?
Yep.
And so all through this area, these channels, they can't keep up with the increased runoff that we're getting. And so there's issues going through in these parts of the neighborhood. Trucks in the drainage ditch, Robbinsdale, right after we got it built, there was a car floating in it. And so all this increased runoff and this flash flooding was creating issues. And so this is a site that's ranked pretty good because you got this whole parking lot, and it's a church, so it's a nonprofit which is able to go apply for grants and stuff. But this whole parking lot goes into a little depressed area that's just got a drain to it. Well, you could modify that to create a little standpipe and create some detention and attenuation and retrofit this site for relatively low cost because the infrastructure is in place. This is just another site. It's another church. Parking lot's draining into here. Comes through this curb cut. So all this impervious surface is directly connected impervious areas. And these are the areas that we're really trying to break up and disconnect these impervious surfaces and let it come into contact with the earth to help the stormwater management through nature, basically. And so anytime we could break that connection up, we could route it into this little grassy area. Sure, you're not going to be able to detain the whole entire parking lot, but it'll help the first flush, and then it'll still run off the same way. And again, this is another parking lot. This is right off of Mount Rushmore Road over here. You know, it's a big grassed area in the middle of all this impervious surfaces. Flows coming into there, so it helps a little bit, but you can take this area and create a nice little park and a detention pond within it and help really mitigate the stormwater runoff, you know, within this block. Go ahead, Dan. This is the Knollwood and the racetrack. Same process, same kind of concept. I went over this presentation already, and you guys are all familiar with it, so I'm going to just keep going on until we get to the new ones that we did. These are just more examples of sites that could be relatively easily retrofitted for stormwater improvements. So this is the South Canyon Basin. This is one of the basins that we did within the second phase of the project. So you can see this is really it's the largest basin within Rapid City's basins, other than the Rapid Creek drainage basin that expands all the way up towards Pactola and stuff. So this is a large basin with relatively low amounts of development in it. It's all concentrated in the lower reaches of the basin, and a lot of that development is residential. And so, you know, this whole project is really looking at urban stormwater runoff, but this basin experiences a lot of runoff coming from these steeper slopes further up there. I mean, there's some rural developments at the very upper reaches of the basin, and then it flows through Nemo Road and then goes through the neighborhood through here and through a couple more 90s. So there's always some flooding issues that happen through this area here. So as you can see, this is kind of the priority area where there's the most concentration of possible sites to implement stormwater projects. So one of them is right up on, this is Sturgis Road, and that whole complex that's up there. Then this road coming down through here is West Chicago. So right now, all this impervious surface comes through, which this is good, right? It's disconnected. It just flows through this grass, and then it goes right through this drain. Well, there's a whole entire big grass area here to where we can route this water into here and create a rain garden to where it ponds up a certain volume of water and allows it to infiltrate and then run off, and then still use this same infrastructure to be able to release that water out of the rain garden. So this would be a high priority area because it's your biggest bang for your buck. You could implement a project in here for relatively low money versus somewhere that doesn't have this infrastructure and water being routed to this type of facility. This is the West Chicago Boulevard area here. A lot of cities are moving to, you know, having curb cuts every so often within these areas and letting that first flush of water run into these areas to help the water quality. So it's that first half inch of rain that we get that really is carrying the pollutants, flushing the streets off and everything that's on the streets. So if we could get that in there to help filter that out, and it still follows the same conveyance area, is helping. So this here is the Morningside Basin on the left, and then the Haynes Avenue Basin on the right. You can see the largest concentration areas with the yellow rectangles. So here's an example for the Morningside Basin. This is this is one of the overflow parking lots of the Civic Center. So all that runoff drops into these drop inlets, one here, and there's all throughout all those parking lots. It's all going in there, and these, you can see from right here, this is looking towards the creek's flowing right here. This culvert goes right to Rapid Creek. So all this impervious surface is directly connected right into Rapid Creek. And these are the types of things that we're trying to mitigate and disconnect that. There's a whole entire green space there that can be utilized to disconnect that and help improve the water quality, and even that quantity, that rush of water coming from that parking lot is instant. It runs through that parking lot, it's in the creek, and you see flash flooding all the way down Rapid Creek. And so not only in Rapid City are we impacted, all the residents all the way down Rapid Creek's impacted, and that's why this project's beneficial for the whole entire Pennington County and beyond. So it's not just Rapid City benefiting from this project. It's all connected, all the way up and downstream, so. This just shows the big parking lot at Shopko. It's all coming here, there's 2 drop inlets right there. It's all directly connected. This feeds into the storm sewer, it makes its way down to the outlet that comes out down here in the Morningside Basin, actually.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a question.
sure.
So, Jason, this is actually very interesting. And I won't pretend to know a lot about it, but did you guys study the Rapid City flood in the 70s?
I haven't done any studies on it.
I haven't either.
Our
I'm
office
just curious.
hasn't done any studies, but there has been extensive studies done on it.
Sure. I
The
think
whole
this
greenway
is
that we
interesting.
have is at the cost of 234 people that died.
Yeah.
38.
238 people that died all the way through this greenway. So Rapid City's actually got a great greenway going through that is at the cost of all those people that died, and they're slowly starting to implement projects all throughout that greenway.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I don't know, you go on the bike path with all, like,
I do.
have you
Yeah.
seen, the city has done several projects in the green belt that, it has, slows the water down, just like he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
They need to do
money
more.
that. What?
They need to do
They do,
more.
but it's a financial thing for the city, but they have done a pretty good job, especially in some areas like down by Founders Park and east towards East Boulevard and beyond even. There's some
Yeah.
pretty nice projects they've done just doing exactly what Jason's telling us here today.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
So this is the downtown basin. Just to point out some of those areas that Dan's talking about. All these channels right here are all draining the downtown area. And so before, they just went directly into the creek, just like these parking lots are doing. And so now they built little wetland channels that water comes in and then it runs parallel to the creek, runs through the cattails and the wetlands, and then back into the creek. So each of those outlets have a constructed wetland channel that helps mitigate it. They just did a project here. A few years back, they did a project here at the golf course. They did a project. So, you know, they're doing projects. They just have their hands tied. You know, so this is all into pipe solutions. All the runoff from the whole entire basin, all the way up, is coming down to the creek, and so it's all at the end of the pipe. What we're trying to do really is get into here and start implementing projects to help the burden on these under pipe solutions. And then it becomes a connected network instead of these just isolated projects where you're trying, but it's still a lot of flow to do it.
I think the key thing that Jason's talking about is, those are big projects that cost thousands of dollars to do it. We're talking about small projects in those specific areas that need some work, that are not gonna be high dollar items.
Or projects that we collaborate for,
Yeah.
well, for instance, on this one. And so, and the city sees value in this. I talked to Brandon all the way through through the study. I get to an area and I call Brandon. I'm like, hey, what's going on with this area? And, there's multiple inlets and it's not matching up with their data. And, so for them to keep updating their data is tough too. So it's like, we have the most current data that they have, but if that's from 2016, they don't have all the new stuff that they've done. So there's missing links of it getting updated versus what we actually are looking at and have. And so I'm calling Brandon, and he was very helpful explaining how things were going. And so in the cities, we could give the geodatabase to them to where they could have it. We've tried getting it on RapidMap. That's not going to happen, it sounds like. But they at least have access to the geodatabase and be able to have it within their system if people need it, and however that was to work. But this site here is down by the fairgrounds. So the horse rink riding area is right over on this side of the fairgrounds. You can kind of see the the little waterfall area in here, but all this area right over through here, and you can't really see it, it's kind of dark, but right here there's a big culvert that's dumping directly into Rapid Creek, and that's from this whole highway that runs by the railroad tracks and the South Dakota School of Mines parking lot. All of that impervious area is connected and directed down into this area. And so when I drove back in there, this is just all full of garbage, people dumping, and years and years and years of garbage in there. And the Black Hills Paddler is actually one of the Vision Fund projects. It didn't get awarded a project, but this was one of the, go ahead, Tim. This is one of the areas where this, it's basically their vertical weir. And so throughout their process of wanting to do a project, so their goal is they want to have wave parks for kayaking. Well, this is an area that's a safety hazard for people recreating in there. The Fish and Wildlife want to do a project here to remove this because it's bad for the fish passage. They get in here and they can't jump up it. So there's no way for the fish to migrate up and down Rapid Creek once they're below this structure. You know, so there's projects that are happening that are going on to where West Dakota can partner with you know, limited funds, and there's other funds, and then now these funds are matching funds, which makes it a stronger grant application to be able to go forward and seek out other money. So with these types of projects in mind and having this done, you know, this can be utilized to write other grants to implement a project within here. And you can do a really cool stormwater park in there and clean it up and have it be a multifaceted thing, which now becomes a very sustainable project, and it's not just geared towards one thing. It has multiple uses. Go ahead, Dan. This is the parking lot that's right down. This is the old Albertsons and the hotel over there. This is the parking lot that's right up off the creek. The creek's right here. Drains the whole parking lot right into the culvert, right into the creek. You know, so this is a great place where you could go in and implement a project, you know, do a tree trench or a bioswale or something through here, utilize this infrastructure to get through the sidewalk and meter it out into the creek. Down here, this is the church up, I don't know if you can kind of see, it's up, kind of back up Mount Rushmore Road and tucked up in there. You know, their whole entire parking lot is sheet flowing down to curb and gutter, and then it goes either way to PVC drains that drain out into the street. Well, if you got rid of, you know, got curb cuts and made a little, you know, level spreader or a rain garden or a bow retention and a swell through there, it could infiltrate in there, fill up, and then still overflow and just sheet flow down and then onto the street and out. And down gradient from here, there's been lots of complaints from residents down in this area from flooding and all their gravel alleys washing out down into there and stuff. So those are the types of projects that this project looked at to try to, like, hey, start here instead of being like, all right, where do we tackle this endeavor of implementing projects.
Mr. Chairman,
Do you have any costs or any idea what a cost of a typical project might be?
Oh,
255 sites, say from the easiest to the hardest?
Yeah, I didn't take the time to put numbers on stuff. I mean, you'd really have to look, is there utilities in there? You know, if you're relocating utilities, then there's a cost. You know, so you could go, you know, for $50,000 and implement, you know, start doing it. I mean, for something like this, I mean, you gotta have a guy in there with an excavator making a bioswale. You know, you could probably come in there do some curb cuts and some grading and stuff in there for, you know, $15,000 and implement a smaller project in there. Is it gonna stop the flooding down gradient? No, but it's sure gonna help if you start having these all over the place.
I think the lowest end could be as little as a few $1,000. And then, of course, the sky's the limit. The $1 million stuff we want to stay away from. We're really looking for what comes easiest.
We looked at it over at South Middle School. You know, they've got quite a bit of land there, and there's a kind of natural drainage, and they had a drain at the end of the channel. So that water just went down in there. it was already a natural swell. If they just put a riser in there and contain that water back to keep it, keep the water back flowing out.
To slow it down?
That'd probably be $5,000-$6,000 project. Not much money.
But how do we move to start getting these things implemented?
We'll
We've got
talk
this
about
great-
that at the end of this. I think we should get Jason through, we're burning quite a bit of time, get him through his report here. And then
So this is the last slide, so, the future recommendations would really be to, to look at these sites, pick out a site and look, all right, what's it really gonna cost, what's the feasibility, is there utilities in there? What's it gonna take to do a project, and look at a few different sites to where, all right, something in this caliber costs $5,000, something in this caliber is, $25,000, and kind of gauge it and get an idea of what it's gonna actually take. But we didn't go, they provided us a lot of data, but we didn't have utilities data, water lines, power, all of that was not included in the database that they don't give that information out. And so really looking at that would be kind of a next step. And then kind of starting with these priority areas that are, those green ones, and then start kind of going down from there. Any kind of partnerships or collaboration, there's city funds that they're doing projects, and there's state funding for projects, there's federal grant money for infrastructure projects. So really looking at the feasibility, and then if the board can't do it alone, can we get a grant that can do it? And really looking at those priorities of where can we implement this for the biggest bang for the buck is kind of the overall goal of this. So that's all I got for you. So if there's any more questions, I'd be more.
I was just gonna make a comment. We looked at a lot of this is private property, and working with like churches, nonprofits, and they've got to do something with their asphalt parking lot. And there's some possibility to work with them to put in some of the green belts and things like that if we're going to redo their parking lot, for example. If we could partner with them and help them out with some money, if they can change, not just put asphalt back down there, take a look at what they can do to retain the stormwater runoff off of that parking lot for a few extra $1,000, something like that.
That was actually one of the ranking factors, was if you had a parking lot in poor condition that was gonna need repairs, it
Yeah,
would
there's quite a few.
would make it rank higher.
Yep.
We got a lot. Who had their hand up first?
I think Ron did.
Ron, you go ahead. We'll just go around.
Just a comment, I'm glad we're at the conclusion. So we've got this inventory information now, Jason, so congratulations on getting that done.
Thanks, John.
And as I was thinking about this, and it's not something we want to deal with at this meeting, but it kind of came to mind, is we may want to consider, as West Dakota, going forward, some kind of a standing program that we might have available to people in each basin that we've inventoried. Some kind of a matching fund program where somebody can come to us and they can, we'd have a cap on the amount we'd be willing to spend for a project, but, offer that as an incentive to folks to come in and take advantage of this, this inventory with the highest priority places, and use some of that money that we have, to begin to implement stuff similar to what we've been doing in real life on the groundwork, at LaCroix and at Star Village. And so instead of studying stuff, we moved from studying stuff to implementing stuff. So just a thought for people to think about going forward, how we might be able to get this rolling.
I think we need to work with the city, because any of these projects are within the city limits. They have to get a permit from the city to do it. And so those folks down at City Hall are gonna know about these projects before we do, and work with the city staff, like Brandon's group down there. Well, they're aware of it.
One that the city offered incentives too, and that's how a lot of these cities, there's cities that are really progressive on it, because they're at their wits' end. They don't have any more room, they don't have options, and so, they're helping private entities be able to implement these things and help cover that cost, because in the end, it's gonna benefit the city, and lessen that burden on their infrastructure. You know, their 24-inch storm sewer pipes are no longer they're at capacity. You know, they need to be 36-inch now. So anything they could do to help that would be, to me, an incentive to help. You know, like that Shopko parking lot is sitting there empty.
Yeah, it's empty.
You know, and I don't know if you guys seen that video from the Eco Prayer Park, but that one tiny little parking lot of the church in the Hardee's area, it filled up that whole entire park and the forebay that we built. I mean, it was rushing through there.
It was overflowing.
And
That's what happens.
it's one tiny little parking lot. You know, the whole site's an acre. So, yeah.
Wendy, now it's your turn.
Well, I'm going to launch off of what Ron said, and I think that's a really good point. Just, you know, how the initial information is there. Great job. I mean, I understand it better today than I'll admit than I have before. My bad. But, you know, I think it's time, because it seems like a lot of projects that we help facilitate are these initial type projects where we're giving money to get it started, get it going, and now it's time for a handoff. And I guess great information, but at this stage, it's time for somebody else to take over and start helping pay for this, which I think is, again, excellent information. But that's how I guess I feel. It's time for somebody else to step in. Are there grants? Is there money available to help facilitate, you know, just making sure that, I guess, the infrastructure is built to accommodate what you're talking about.
One of the things we've been talking about, you know, getting with the Black Hills Council of Local Governments, who have grant writers. You know, we got one guy, part-time guy, so we're not really set up for that sort of thing.
Sure.
But Black Hills Council of Local Governments might be a really good fit, because people are coming to them with their projects. We don't have a lot of people walking in the door here, because number one, we don't have a lot of money, and number one, we don't have grant writers, you know, so they're more geared towards doing exactly what you're talking about, I think. So, Nancy, did you have something? You did, oh. Cheryl.
Question for Jason. Do you know that whether or not the city and the county have something in place? So if somebody buys that Shopko, that they would have to have some kind of water mitigation system set up on that particular property.
Yep.
If they're gonna redo it, you know, reconstruct
They
and
have
everything, do they have?
The city has the 2012 infrastructure design criteria manual,
Okay.
and they also have a 2009 water quality manual. And so, and it outlines, you know, once you disturb, you know, so many square feet, and then you have to mitigate the stormwater to, you know, the 210 and 100-year historic events. And so there's that criteria in place to where the developer would have to meet that criteria. But then that's it. You know, it doesn't say, they don't tell them exactly what they have to do. You just have
They have to approve their
meet
design
that.
though,
Yep, they
correct?
have to meet that
So they do
criteria.
have to, so it does come down to the planning departments
Yep.
And engineering.
and engineering, yeah.
Yeah.
Good question.
Scott, did you have anything?
I-
Okay, Dan?
Well, I've kind of been a lead on doing this work, you know. To me, it seemed to be something that made sense. I don't intend to just let it sit on the shelf. I guess, you know, I'll kind of go where Ron was talking about going. My intent is that we should have a program to begin doing this sort of stuff, and I guess I'd like to see a committee formed to where we could, you know, sit down in a smaller group and talk about how might we actually go about doing this. 'Cause, you know,
Yeah.
what I see is 600,000 in the bank. You know, we've got money to go towards this sort of thing, and I see improving stormwater quality and reducing runoff is one of the simplest things we can do to, you know, improve our water resources in the area. So, you know, I guess I'd be willing to be on such a committee, and if there's other folks interested, let's kind of
We'll
start
take it
talking
up
about
at
it.
the end of our, as soon as Jason's done, we can take that up.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a comment on that. Respectfully, Director Driscoll, the taxpayer money should not be solely dedicated to this. There should be an effort, as Director Koth is talking about, I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, but there should be an effort to find out what kind of grants and money is available. It should not just come from this West Dakota. We've spent a lot of money on this already. Over 50 grand? Somebody tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay,
Yeah, about
that's
50.
a lot of taxpayer dollars. And before we say, oh, well, we have all this money, again, respectfully, we need to say, what else is out there? What's Rapid gonna do? What's Rapid City gonna do? I'm all for it. I've learned more tonight and have been open to this more tonight than I think I've ever been. And I apologize for that. That's on me. But this is not just on this group. And we are the stewards of taxpayer dollars. We need to make sure we're not irresponsibly dedicating funds to this without looking into other programs. That's my thought.
Mr. Chair? There could very well be many other sources of the funding, and I think that's one of the things that the committee would be looking at.
Sure.
How can we gain other partnerships?
Yeah, I agree.
I understand. Thank you.
Dan, she has a question?
Dan,
I want to point out we're getting close to 4 o'clock here.
okay.
Dan, she has a question on her.
I'm
for the
sorry.
conference call.
Could you identify yourself too?
I'm Julie Freimuller,
Okay.
and so, I just have a quick question. Have you guys started other programs like this, or is this the first time starting a program? Because is that usually what you guys do?
We're involved with projects that we think of basically, the number one priority is improving water quality and making sure our, like Rapid Creek stays as good as it is now and so forth. So that's like our number one mission statement, is to look at projects that improve or at least maintain water quality in our water resources.
Well, it just because, if I may, you just keep calling it a program, and programs aren't necessarily something that taxpayers are supposed to pay for. You are supposed to find maybe volunteer funding or outside funding, because programs are usually referred to on something that you feel is something you should address, not that something you need to address. Does that make sense? And when this money gets put aside for emergency purposes or different things for water quality, like what we're here for is some water quality stuff, but it just seems like could possibly be going down an area where you're starting a whole new realm of taking care of things where, does that make sense?
Mr.
Sort
Chair,
of,
you want to
yeah.
advise? So we also have a program for low income for septic tank removal. And if I remember correctly, I served with your husband on this very same board. And that was one big program that we tried to utilize and use, but we've had very limited use. I think there's been maybe 2 applications for that program. So we do have a history of having programs ran by the board. Now, I agree with you, this should not tie into our budget. We should not be the sole arbiter, as Director Nadagal has stated, but I believe that it falls within the mission to provide that funding as a conduit, not as a sole purpose, on a base-by-base, as the septic tank funding.
Yeah.
We don't actually have a line item of how many septic tanks that we're going to do. But we have the program. If they meet the criteria, they fill out the paperwork, there is a review process, and we can fund that. That is an actual working program that this board does have. So I would refer to that program as the model, or at least as we have done a program of a similar fashion to. Now, it may not be exactly. I know it's two different things. I also know there's an income requirement on the septic tank program. But I would say that would be our closest description. And I understand your concerns. Nobody wants a whole bunch of money earmarked for one thing. I'm aware.
And I know all about the other
Yeah.
ordinance that was passed, but I just want to make sure, like, and I appreciate the comments that you've made because you're really watching out for taxpayer money, which is what I do as well. So, I mean, I appreciate it, and even though grant money is still taxpayer money, I don't know that intentionally, when my husband served on this board, that was one of the things to go out and, maybe find new projects, because there's people out there who are needing funding that the taxpayers have put into. They need funding for certain things, and it's a nice idea, but I'm just wondering if that's how the money was supposed to be
I
utilized.
think it's part of what our mission statement is. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's way more projects. We get a couple $100,000 a year, that's it. We can't do much with $200,000 in terms of projects. We've got to partner with somebody that has big resources like municipalities or sanitary districts. We're working with Green Valley. They're trying to get a sewer collection system, and they've been working on that for about the last 3 years. And we aren't going to participate. We're a very small amount if you don't have that much money, but we can help them out to some degree. And that's definitely a water quality problem out there.
I know all about Green Valley too, and I do agree that's
one of our biggest probably our biggest investment. That and the Missouri River Water Project, which we put $150,000 in. So that's almost a whole year's worth of money that we get. This taxpayer money, but it's for the taxpayer.
But overall, how much is this project or program going to run? Because if you only have $600,000, I mean, sounds like there's a lot of different projects.
We don't have the resources for all those projects.
So how are you going to pick and choose?
Well, we have priorities.
We're gonna form a committee. We're gonna start
looking at
how
what
do
we can do.
How do we come up with priorities? Do we need to get onto that call?
We're supposed to be on that call.
Well, can we wrap this up then, or is there any more questions?
I'm done.
You're done? Well, thanks.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Jim. You did a really good job and some good information that we can use in the future. Am I dialing this up? Is that it?
Correct.
Let's see if it works.
I'll get a check from you.
So, well, Dan is dialing the phone number. If the directors want to look at page 26 of 30, it's a little easier to read than what's on the screen. And so this is our annual assurance renewal request. And I know that last year we had a considerable amount of discussion about what assurance was versus insurance and what that really meant in terms of what it covered for us. In the end, we renewed it for another year, but I don't know if we've learned anything in that year unless Director McGregor has explored that further in terms of those definitions. So we're going to have these people on the phone today, and maybe they can answer some questions we would have in that nature.
This is Dan Bierke.
And then we can decide what we want to do after we talk with these folks about this renewal request at this meeting.
Hello?
Hi, Dan. Hi.
Is this Lynn?
This is Lynn, and Becky's also on the line.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Dan.
How you doing?
Good.
There's a sound coming, I'm not sure which end the sound.
I'm not sure. We're trying to get figured out where to put the mic here, so we have to keep a record of what we're doing here.
Yep, perfect.
Well, we got this statement from your company regarding renewal of our insurance from the South Dakota Public Insurance Alliance, which I assume you're representing.
Correct.
So we've been paying for this. I've been on the board now about almost 5 years, and we've been paying this, but we thought we'd be good to have you come and visit with us about the coverage and go over our policy with us. So can you do that?
Yeah, so do you want me to kind of just go through everything, or do you just have specific questions for now, and we can set up a time where we can come out and actually do an in-person visit with you, and we can do the whole board also. Like maybe you said you have your next meeting. Do you have monthly meetings?
No, we meet about 7 times a year. So, but we have a meeting in August. Is our next meeting once a month.
Okay.
So August is our next meeting.
Okay.
And just a second. What did you say the due date is?
I said the due date is the 28th, not the 6th.
Of July? Yeah, the due date is the 27th of July, this month.
Right.
But can you just summarize what coverage we have and the purpose for it?
Sure. We can totally do that. So the district has with us, you've got your governmental liability coverage, and with that governmental liability coverage, that responds to third-party claims, so claims that citizens and other people would make against the district. Some may be monetary claims where they feel that they've been damaged in some way. Others may be injunctive claims where they don't like a decision you've made and stuff like that, so they can also pursue those types of claims against you. Also, this governmental liability coverage, that includes your what's very commonly known as directors and officers, so your errors and omissions coverage. So this is liability coverage that protects the district and then any employees that you would have and your elected and appointed officials against those third-party claims. We have it written with $1 million per occurrence limit. There's some sublimits in there for different types of coverages, medical expense coverage for like trip and falls on your property, injunctive relief, so that would be if there's an appeal to a decision that you've made, and things like that. You do not have a deductible for those third-party liability claims. All of our members have a employment-related deductible, so if you have an employee and you plan to fire them, or you have questions about FMLA and things like that, and there's a claim that arises out of an action that you take on an employment-related matter, there's a deductible, but we have an employment practice hotline that you can call and follow advice of counsel, and then that deductible is waived. That information, the employment practices hotline information, is available on our website. So if you need to check that out, you can go there, the phone number, and then there's a PDF kind of handout, like a 10-point overview of the hotline itself that you can take a look at. So that's kind of your general liability coverage. Again, it's those third-party claims. With that, we have a rider for any hired and non-owned auto liability. So because you don't have auto liability coverage with us, but you certainly may be using your personal autos for district use or purposes, what that does is it offers an excess coverage. So if you're in an accident and you first turn in the claim to your own personal insurance, and that's based on state law, and case law supports that. But then if you do not have enough insurance, or if your insurance company denies the claim for some reason, then the FCPA would step in as excess for those times when you're using your personal auto for district business. The district also has with us your property coverage. Let me get down to that section here. So you've got your office in Rapid City,
Yes.
on St. Joe Street. You've got some contents coverage there for you. Right now we cover contents at that location. We've got a limit of $8,555. There's a $500 deductible with replacement cost. So if there's a fire or some sort of damage like that, lightning, takes out your computers or what have you, there's some coverage there for the contents that are at that. You must have a leased office location there.
Right, we
so
do,
that's
yeah.
part of the property coverage that we have for you. And then you also have your enhanced crime coverage with us. And what that does is the enhanced crime coverage, basically it's a blanket coverage. It stands not only in the place of any statutorily required bonds under Chapter 3-5, but also extends to all of your appointed and elected officials and full-time, part-time employees. So one example would be, employee theft is covered, like if an employee is embezzling or an elected official, things like that. Embezzlement claims are the most common claims we see there. We have handled a claim where one of our members had someone get into their email system and pretend to be a trusted vendor and asked for banking information to be changed. Our member did that, and then this new fake vendor sent invoices which were paid by our member, trusting that, hey, this is the vendor we always do business with. So that claim was submitted to the crime coverage, and we helped them out there. So that's kind of the overview of the three coverages that you guys have with us. There's no claims on your policy here with us, since we usually send out a 5-year loss run, and as of last year there had been no claims. So as your water development district, that's what we've got. If you have other equipment and stuff like that you'd like to have covered, we can certainly take a look at adding that. But that's the high-level overview of really what the coverages you have with us and kind of what they do.
Okay, I do have one question. We don't have an employee. Our administrator works for us under contract. We have a contract. How does that? How would that work as far as insurance covering that contract?
So, it depends on how your contract is written. Typically, contracted parties have their own coverage, and then they are protecting you through the contract language against claims arising out of their actions. If the contract does not say that, then the FCPA coverage extends only to our actual employees and our appointed and elected officials. So that contracted person, unless there's contracted language extending the coverage to them, would not just automatically apply. So we want to take a look at what that contract actually says.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Can you hear? This is Scott McGregor, one of the board members. He has a question.
My question is,
Okay, go ahead, Scott.
as a member of the Alliance, is there any scenario where we might become liable for more than just our $1,800 invoice claim here that we have before us today? If there's an excess claim brought in that can't be covered, aren't all members of the Alliance obligated to kick in to cover that?
Did you hear him?
Okay, so I think what he's getting at, I think you're asking about assessments. So basically, the way the pool is set up is the pool carries, so every member has $1 million, well, not every member has $1 million limits. Every member purchases coverage to protect their assets. Similarly, the pool also protects their assets, which are your assets, by purchasing what's called reinsurance. So the pool has a deductible, and then we have reinsurance above that amount, which helps to protect us. Our financials are posted on our website, so you can take a look at those pretty much any time. We don't currently have an assessment clause within the document. The last intergovernmental contract that was signed does not any longer contain an assessment clause. But frankly, we pride ourselves on excellent financial management. If we are looking like things are not working out, you're going to know well in advance of any issues that the pool may have. Because our information, I mean, you can contact us anytime. We are an open book.
That answer your question?
Not really, but I understand that there is a possible scenario then where we might become responsible for more than
$1 million?
our coverage payment here? It
So
may be
if there's a
unlikely,
claim-
may be very unlikely, but it is a possibility, correct? Did you hear him?
So for you individually, if someone sues you for $2 million and you have $1 million in limits, if the court orders the $2 million to be paid, the SDPA would be responsible for the $1 million, assuming that there's no other coverage issues and stuff like that. In that case, then you could hypothetically be responsible for excess over that million.
That's not my, let me look at it this way. If your investment pool, because of a number of claims being filed, becomes deleted to the point where a new claim coming in cannot be covered by that pool, then every member of the alliance is on the hook for contributing to cover that claim, correct?
No, we do not have an assessment clause. So if the pool becomes liquidated, then you at that point would seek out other coverage. Each member would seek out other coverage. We do not have an assessment clause, though.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else have a question? Doesn't look like there's any more questions, so appreciate you going over our policy with us, because I think some of us didn't really know exactly what we had and what we're paying for.
Okay, yeah, and you guys are welcome to call anytime. You've got mine and Becky's numbers, and our information is out on the website, so you can reach us anytime. Call, email, text if you've got questions, or if there's something that comes up, or if you've got a concern. Please just feel free to reach out anytime, and any one of you can call us.
And you're located in Fort Pierre?
So our main office is in Fort Pierre, and we work remotely. So Becky comes out of Wagner, and I actually come out of Harrisburg.
Okay.
But with a little bit notice, we can be out to your meetings.
Okay.
It's just this week we were pretty jam-packed, so we weren't able to get out there timely.
Okay, well, I appreciate you taking time to give us an update.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Anything else we can do?
just a second. Dan's got a question. Mullally,
Okay.
our administrator.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know who I'm talking to. This is Dan Mullally. I'm the program administrator. So the invoice due date is the 28th of this month. If we want to make modifications or have more questions, is there any grace period on that?
Yeah, yep, we can make changes, and then we just let the underwriters know that we're working through some changes and quoting and things like that, and then they just let the finance gals know that it's pending.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you've got changes and things you want to talk about, yep, we can do that, so you don't have to write multiple checks or anything like that.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Have a
Have a
good-
great night.
Yeah, have a great night. Bye. All right. Now, where are we?
Hey, Dan.
Yeah. Right.
For purposes of the discussion, I'll move to approve the payment of our annual assurance fee, $1,887.
There's been a motion to pay the insurance fee.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cheryl. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Okay.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
I'd like to reflect it all abstain on this vote.
Well, you abstained.
So that-
One abstention,
Okay, so that motion was by Director Cole.
and seconded by Cheryl.
And could I comment? I do have a surety bond on myself. Getting to your question.
Okay.
And I can't remember the exact amount, but just something to think about if you don't think that's adequate.
Well, it sounds like we're gonna pay for the bill, and then we can talk about it later if we need to. Thanks for telling us that, though. Okay, so where are we?
Number 10.
Okay, number 10, Down in Keystone. Ron, do you want to introduce this?
Sure. So, late last week, I was contacted by Senator Freimuller, who had been talking with the city of Keystone about some interest they had in coming to the board and learning more about the kind of things that we fund in terms of collaborative projects. And they had an interest in talking to us about, as I understand it, an impoundment called Battle Creek Dam. But that's about all I know. And so I see a number of folks here that can address that topic.
Let's get a mic over there so we can.
Is there a way that we could have gotten Dan these pictures so you could have put them up for everybody to see, or can you scan them, Dan?
If you have them electronically in a
That-
USB,
And she's left already for the day because her passed, otherwise she could have sent them.
unless you can email them to me right now.
Like, she's already left for the day, our finance officer, so I can't get it to you now. But I could do it tomorrow, which is not a problem. I can send these around and I can talk about them.
Why don't you folks from Keystone identify yourself
Sure.
for the record? Just in the mic there.
I'm Sandy McLean, and I've been on the town board of Keystone for over 14 years. So I have a lot of history with Keystone.
I'm Bill Babcock. I just got elected in this year, so.
Okay, thank you.
And basically, we were talking to Julie, and essentially she was indicating, and first let me tell you a little bit about our community. Our community has lost a lot of residential people within the last census period. We have moved from 340 people down to almost 240 people. And our structure is different. We are a resort community. And essentially, we can't afford a huge budget. That's why we're here. We're talking to you to help us with some plans. And when I look at bigger projects like have been listed up there, it'd be nice if we could develop bigger projects, but we don't have the money to do that. We're a very poor community, even though we survive off of the tourists. And we do have issues with our creek, and for some of you that don't know, Battle Creek is a fishery. And so right now, our water quality is not the best. In fact, it's probably going to be dried up here very shortly. But we took current pictures. Bill had a nice camera that we were able to take pictures of what's going on in the creek. We have a problem, and yes, some of that problem has occurred through flooding. 2 years ago, there was a fairly severe flood that came through, and it left a lot of gravel and things piled up, but what it also left was silt. And silt is changing the quality of the water itself, and we tried to take pictures of that. I don't know if it's as apparent as it was, but we were crawling under the bridges. There's a lot of debris that has existed under our bridges. For our community, the past 5 years, we have gotten all of our bridges, and this year will be the final bridge that'll be replaced. So we feel lucky in that fact that we set around a lot of money to get all of our bridges completed, where many of the people in South Dakota don't have all their bridges completed. So that's where our money has gone in the last few years. But we have a problem with the quality of the water that's coming down there. And the only reason I know this is that DANR has involved our business as well, in the sense that the fish, many of the fish are not surviving at this point, and the water quality, and you can see the things that are growing on top of the water. The silt is piled under the bridges, and of course we had some of our city workers go under there and take the pictures of that silt. And it's, we don't have the amount of money to start a project. We don't know exactly what we're asking for, because I've learned a lot, like Wendy said, just listening to what some of the people are presenting. So we don't want to claim that we know anything about what we're doing or what you guys are doing. But I guess we want to learn the information on applying or at least trying to attempt to start somewhere. And that's why we're here. Why I'm saying we need the money is we don't have the money to do something that's official. We have a lot of erosion that's occurring on the banks of the creek itself. Yes, it is bordered by private business as well as Forest Service, as well as we've got a multitude of agencies that are there. And we are working with Dustin, who is, we're going to start our FEMA emergency management examples and projects, and we have to start putting those on paper this year as well. So we know portions of this. But the bridge that really concerns us, and it's in downtown Keystone, and it will cause, especially when major storms, the runoff itself, if we don't get some of this silt out of the areas under the bridges, that water is going to be coming down the actual town and going into each one of the businesses. We have an unusual makeup because we are only working with sales tax dollars. Many of our business people do not live in our community. And they come in, purchase the businesses itself, but in that flood 2 years ago, much of that water was beginning to come in there, because if you look at our we call it our Winter Street Bridge, and there's no room under that bridge. I mean, that's the amount of room we have under that bridge. And this year, of course, we didn't get a flood. Last year we didn't get a flood. We've been lucky for the last couple years. But we've got to get a lot of that silt coming out, and what that silt is doing is killing the fish that are basically in the creek itself. And that's where DANR is coming in.
A lot of them pictures there, I took prior before we took some more pictures today, but there's one in there that shows like a big grassy area. But what it is, it's a storm sewer. It's half full. It's right across the street from my house, and it's half full of silt. There you can crawl in there, and that's it. And then there's another one on there that looks like it's got a bunch of bars on it. It's a storm sewer that's just been completely wiped out. That one right there.
Filled up, you mean, with silt?
That, and it's just basically caved in.
Oh.
And that's why we're coming to you guys, because it's an immediate threat to our community, and luckily in the last couple of years we have not had. And if any of you know the 72 flood, Keystone and Rapid City got all the promotion of that, but Keystone was totally destroyed. And we just got done with the 50th anniversary where 14 people were killed. Yes.
So, you say you have FEMA coming?
We do,
Okay.
and we do have projects on there in order to do that. But Dustin has already said we won't be able to complete those projects for 2 years. So what do we do for 2 years?
But did you for sure get them? The
We,
grants?
no.
No, because when I talked to Dustin, you hadn't.
No.
You haven't even gotten
These are
approved
just
for
in the
anything.
beginning stages of the new plan that's coming up. So it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get that
And
done.
have you talked to Game Fish and Parks?
Yes, we have, and they're a part of the DE, or they're DANR now. And I guess what we're trying to do is to start somewhere. And I think that was, things that you were saying that this agency would work with, is if you're beginning to start something, we've got to do something about the debris and everything that's under our bridges.
It's very bad. Last flood we had, we thought we was going to lose the Winter Street Bridge because the water was actually hitting So after everything settled down, the engineers went in, checked, and the bridge that was just down from the Winter Street Bridge, they had to seal it off completely because it actually turned it.
And it was a private bridge, so the city had nothing to do with that bridge, but we had to close it because it would have wiped out that bridge itself.
Well, and I just wanted you guys to know that from knowing about the West Dakota Water Development District, I suggested it to Sandy, and I said, have you looked into this? Because these guys, this usually helps people that have the issues that they're having, so this is a need.
Yeah.
This is a need.
But we
This
didn't
is
know what
more
the
of a flood-
process.
More of a flood control project. I was just wondering, you don't rely on Battle Creek for your water supply, do you?
No, we actually have 6 different wells
Yeah,
that
okay,
we
that's what I thought.
operate from. But when I talked to the water person today, the one that runs the water and sewer plant, it basically is a very large plant because it was built because of tourists, okay? Because in the winter, we have to buy bugs in order to work within that itself. In the summer, you don't need that because you have a high influx. But he said when the water infiltrates, when it gets high, because in Keystone it's different than Rapid City because it spreads out. Up there, it comes fast and it leaves fast. And that's when it does all the damage of that.
Did you have a question?
Yes, sir, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question would be, do you and have you actively sought bids for what you're looking to do?
No, because we were told that we had to have the Corps of Engineer and actually have them involved because we've never been allowed to touch that underneath the bridges.
Sure, okay.
And so maybe it's because they've never done it before and they're not knowing the procedures. So that's why we wanted to start here, because we need to know where to start.
Well, I do think this is an amazing place to start.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, you're going to know way more, and several people are going to know way more about the policies than I do, but I know there is a policy on a engineer study for
Preliminary engineer study.
Yep, a preliminary engineer study, and that has to be done. So I guess my question is, Mr. Chairman, does that apply here?
I would say it does, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And let me just interject.
Sure.
The Corps of Engineers are going to, you say you're going to come out and look at your project?
Well, they have to be a part of it because they're the only ones that give the permission to go under the waterway, the creek.
I assume they're probably going to have an engineer come out there from the Corps.
Well, we have a city engineer herself, and it's Ron, the one you were talking
Ron
about.
Banks.
Yeah. But he can prepare stuff as a city engineer for whatever's necessary, but I'm sure the Corps of Engineers is going to request something else, I would imagine. I don't know.
It sounds like there's a lot of unknowns here. Other than
A lot of unknowns, yeah.
Ron, do you want to say something?
I just had a question before I need any comments. How are you engaged with the DANR right now?
Only as my business is. We're gold panning, basically, and we're gold panning in a creek on a claim on Forest Service property. And so basically the DANR got involved because that's how we found out about all the fish and silt in the creek and so on. And so that's only why I'm privy to that, is because that's one of because they're in charge of the waterways, and because that is a fishery, that is a concern to them.
Go ahead.
Well, with your initial relationship with the DANR, pardon me, because it just changed the name, and I'm used to saying DANR.
I know, everyone still says
DANR. So that's a good place to start, I think, in terms of, beginning to scope, what you want to try and do there. There sounds like there's a lot of things going on in terms of sediment delivery, conveyance under bridges, all of those kinds of things. And so that would be a good place to start. They have a watershed program. They have access to, funding that can be provided to cities for a variety of different things where they may or may not need, extensive studies. And your contract engineer should be pretty familiar with that.
Okay.
With funding through the state water plan. There are a lot of things going on, in your circumstance as far as I understand it.
Okay.
And the Corps will be involved because if you end up trying to change the geometry of the stream channel
Of course
or
they will.
remove silt, you'll end up with some kind of a Army Corps of Engineer permit under the 404 program.
404.
Right, and Bangs, Ron Bangs will be familiar with that, or at least he should be.
Okay.
So, I think that the DANR might be a good place to start.
So is that what you're saying is we're not to start here?
Well, we need to have, as Director Nottegal and Director Berkey indicated, before we can help someone do something, we need to know what they're proposing to do to see how that fits in with our, mission statement and funding. Because flooding is really not our deal, so to speak.
And I know that, but
Yeah.
this isn't solely that. I mean, it's silt and.
Right, it's tangential to, the deposition and the stream channel geometry issues you've got.
Sure.
So we need to know what you want to try and do. And so that's where.
But we don't know what to do.
You may need to get some help, from,
Okay.
let's say, other public employees that are at the DANR or even the Corps of Engineers with somebody like, one of their guys that comes out here regularly, Nathan Moray. He might be able to help you with scoping what you need to kind of start thinking about in conjunction with your contract engineer.
Do you have his contact information?
Yeah.
That Nathan?
Yeah, Nathan.
Okay, because then we can give him a call or.
I might have it on my phone, I might
Okay.
not, but I have it available.
Is there any part of this that would qualify for any funding?
You don't know what you want to do.
Everything.
We generally have a application process that we've just developed because we get, people that come in, so we're trying to do an application process that requires you to give us specific information and actually some kind of cost estimate for your project. I mean,
Do you have like an application, so that way,
yes,
if we,
yes, we do.
We have guidance on it.
And that's
website.
why
On the
I
website.
said.
On the website?
because
On our website.
It's
Yeah.
on the website?
Yep.
Okay.
So
And that's what I
that's-
referred you to indirectly through Senator Prime Miller, is that information you need for a proposal.
Okay.
I forwarded it to this one and couldn't find this one's email.
Anyway, it's out there. It's out there.
Sorry.
Yeah. I don't have Nathan's
So,
contact,
it's
but I
fine.
can send it to Senator Prime Miller.
That'd be super, and then she can
pass
get
it
it to us, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's under West Dakota Water Development District.
But if you guys want
So
a plan,
you'll
I could
find
tell you
it.
right now, we just get somebody with an excavator, and just start digging out, I mean, that'd be a good plan.
That'd get them
right
to
there.
come down,
Well,
wouldn't
that
it?
might solve your problem immediately, but it might fill up the next time you have a flood.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, a plan to solve your problem for the long term. It's sort of, your
Something
immediate consideration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we can fill out an application or some kind of a thing and get an estimate, if I can get that gentleman's information, and then we can talk to DENR, and we can get on it yet this week, Sandy, if you want.
Sure.
So then we can get our ducks in a row, and we can come back and possibly get extra funding from you guys if we can't get enough.
We can sure consider it.
Okay.
Okay.
We need to have some more information.
Well, and that's why we came.
Yes.
It's not like we're asking for something right now, we just needed a process.
Sandy, we're
Yeah.
emails. We can ask for something right now. We got it too.
Okay, that's good, that
And
just
working with
gave,
your contract engineer is going to be important because
yeah, and
a lot
Ron,
of questions
he's
related
good.
to the watershed and the drainage area and where the water comes from and the channel geometry.
Because it's two
the
creeks
floodplain,
merging, yeah.
And how know it is gerrymandered under FEMA and what that means in terms of activities.
Well,
You're getting into a kind of it's a big deal.
Oh, I know it's
It's a big deal. Years
Well,
ago
we
when
just
I
got a new map, so now we're going through the FEMA process of reissuing a new map.
Years and years ago, when I worked for Game and Fish, I think you had a different contract engineer. At that time, you know, we began to casually discuss working on Battle Creek, but it never went anywhere.
No,
But that
and
was 20 years ago.
it wouldn't have at that point.
So you know that.
I'll just say that. I think Ron has more expertise.
Good.
Okay.
I think Wendy had another question.
I
comment.
do, yes, sir, thank you. Do you have any residents who are now in a flood zone
All of
declared by
us are.
FEMA?
All of us are.
You
All
are
of us
all in
are.
a flood zone, okay.
My house, you'd step out, I'm gonna say probably,
And you are then required to have flood insurance,
yeah, we do.
which is an
If you have a
additional
mortgage,
expense.
yeah.
Yeah, we have it, we have everything
Yes, sir.
at our place.
Got it. You have a question?
No, yes, sir.
My name's Ken Delpino. I reside between Hill City and Keystone. And my concern over the rains that she spoke about a couple of years ago, I had to go and pick up my mail downtown, and I saw the water coming in. My concern would be the water, you know, my wife and I are avid watchers of the Weather Channel. And there's a town in Maryland called Ellicott City. And this could be possible, I mean, it's not as bad as Ellicott, where heavy rains, and it came down, and it just all, you know, all soil is so impervious, right? You talked about earlier?
Right.
And this came down not once, but twice in several years. It just wiped out all businesses. My concern would be debris coming down that bridge going into town. And we don't know, I mean, it's South Dakota, you don't know what kind of weather we're gonna get from day to day. And if some heavy rains like that come in, you got all the water coming down from Mount Rushmore down 244, down towards the creek. You got it coming down Battle Creek from the south. And then it all kind of comes to a point like that and goes on to one stream. And I can send Mr. Mullally those photos that I took a couple years ago what that water level looks like that he's referring to.
It wiped out all the bridges and
It did.
very.
Well, if this wipes out the bridge during tourist season, that's gonna kill the town. Because there's only 3 ways in there, but everybody knows 1 through 16, and that's the main one in. If that bridge goes out because of debris and the floods, that's gonna kill the town. So that was my concern and why I wanted to attend this.
Isn't there a building actually built in the part of that drainage system down there?
There is, and it used to belong to builders, but he got specific permission to build it over the creek itself.
Of course.
Of
Oh, but that's the
course.
one coming down from Route Mushmore, right?
Yeah, that
Not
bridge.
from Battle
Yeah,
Creek.
it goes
Yeah.
underneath that building.
Yeah.
It does. You're
I always thought- I
surrounded
always
by
thought that was a
water.
little strange that they built
Yeah.
it.
But helping and finding out the process or procedure helps a lot, so that's why we came.
Okay, well, appreciate you coming and
We'll be back.
we'll see what.
We'll be back.
I saw we're green.
It'll be soon.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
So basically, if we get all our ducks in a row, get a plan started,
Bids.
then we can come back and discuss it more.
you're always welcome.
Well, let's fill out the application before we come, that way we can submit it at the same time.
Whoever had the pictures,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna
if I can get
Yeah.
those back, then we don't have to crawl under there, you know.
But you'll email them to Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
get them
will.
Then it
emailed
gets all of those.
Sounds good.
right away.
Thanks, guys.
And
Thank you for your time.
I should have your guys' email.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Good luck. Thank you.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Moving along here, I see Scott's here. I think we're going to take up that item since Scott was able to get here. You want to
Sure.
take it on?
So, this is a proposal to fund the erosion control work we've been doing on the north side of Star Village for $24,000. I think, before I start into it, I think I'll give, you want to bring up the slides, Dan, I'll give a quick update on how the work that we've been doing there. It's been pretty informative as we get farther into it, see how things are working, and I guess the bottom line is it's been, in most regards, working better than what I probably would have anticipated. I'll keep this really short. So this slide is taken following a heavy rainstorm on June 20th. So what you're seeing is two lines of wattles up along the head cut of Star Village. Most of you have been there. So right at the upper end of the eroded slope, it gets progressively steeper typically. And we've treated the bulk of that now with two lines of wattles. And then at some point here I started, there's a fellow I know that mows grass. So I collect the grass. He generates 6 or 7 barrels of grass clippings a day, and I just started scattering them. So what you're looking at is downhill from the wattles. So you can see the rivulets that developed, and the grass clippings are totally stable. We had another actually a little heavier rain Sunday night, and it's still the same thing. So, to me, this is kind of one of the most biggest reasons for optimism. To me, one of the biggest challenges we've had here is how can we, address that head cut, and this isn't going to cure it in and of itself. I mean, a best case scenario is we may have to keep bringing in grass clippings for some years to come. They won't last forever, but it's really positive so far. So then the next slide is just a little farther east of there where we've done the topsoiling. You're looking at green wheat. It's now dry. The grass is actually pretty sparse in there, but you can see 2 more rows of wattles. That was taken this spring at the very front end of starting to put grass in there. You notice though some of those pine trees are limbed, trimmed away. In the next slide, it says note the trimmed trees. We trimmed them to work around them. I'll show you some of the branches soon. What we're looking at here, the main thing, that was our topsoiling area. Down in here below, this was an access trail. We just shoveled off quite a bit of our sediment loaded with seed mix, and just to give it a chance to wash downhill, and it's moving down a little bit, and it's growing. So the next slide we'll look at is just right about there. And it's actually back that one up, if you would, Dan. I don't know. Right there you can see one of these wattles we put in the little draw. The draw is deep, just a short wattle. So the next slide, there's a wattle downstream from there. But what we've got here are 3 little seedling pine trees coming in, and then they're mixed in here. We've just thrown in some of these branches that from the trimmed trees. So we're catching sediment, and things are trying to grow. Next slide. This just shows a place we'd scattered some of these tree limbs, and you can see rivulets around there, but the branches are holding stuff. So the next slide. Here's a silt fence that we put in that's filled to the top in 2 locations. It's upstream from another silt fence. There you can see a high water mark, but we built an access trail in there, and so it's catching things. Next slide. Just another new silt fence we put in this spring, one of the few things we've done, and so it's holding things back. Next slide. Just over at LaCroix Links. This shows about how much we got done, 5 rows of wattles, and you can see there's virtually no vegetation there. Next slide shows just a little bigger picture view of the same thing. So then the next slide, conditions have been good this year for growing stuff, even though we started out really dry. And here you can see mud on the downstream side of those wattles. Those are our grow wattles, so they're filled with dirt. They're one of the few things that hadn't really worked out. They haven't really grown anything. But they're catching the sediment, and you can see what's growing in there. So the next slide, just pans a little farther right, and then the next slide a little farther right. And I mean, the stuff downhill from where we've worked looks better than it did a year ago. I mean, we can't necessarily claim we've solved this, but
Good stuff.
right now I'm pretty enthused about how well things have responded, and it's looking pretty optimistic to cure some of these things with less effort instead of more effort. So moving on to the actual agenda item. Was that short enough, Dan, or did I take too much time?
You did so good, Dan.
I talked to him all
Anyhow, I have worked with, I'll introduce Scott Anderson, Director of the Parks Department. The property on the north side of Star Village, there's actually two properties. One, there's a smaller parcel, 2 acres, that's owned by Zadik Property Management, and then the larger parcel that's almost 14 acres. Previously, our agreement was with Phil and Yvonne Wager. They managed to give the property to the city for future use as a park. So the next partner would be with the Parks Department on that. So I guess I'll give you a little more information in a minute, but proper protocol is first to make a motion to fund this project that would involve both Zadik and City Parks. I think have you got a actual wording for the motion?
I believe so.
Somewhere up here. To fund the erosion control project on the north side of Star Village for a total of $24,000 through the end of this calendar year. So that'll be the motion.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Dan. All right, discussion on the motion.
So everybody's seen the paperwork. I emailed it out several weeks ago, and then there was Director Koth had suggested one minor wording change. So I'm not going to go through any of the details at all. The bottom line is that $24,000 is the limit that we would spend through the end of the year, and if we would need more, I don't anticipate it. We could always obligate more. So that would be the total between the two properties. Zadik will reimburse us. We're proposing that they would reimburse us again for 10 cents on the dollar, 10% of whatever we spend on their property. And anytime I'm doing invoices in there, I separate how much money goes towards which one. So the arrangement with the City Parks Department, I really don't see as taxpayer dollars that they would need to provide funding, but we've got language in there specifying that they will provide equipment whenever possible, and there's a fair amount of that coming up in different times. And then really our biggest need is manpower, and of the few things that we've done, the one that stuck out the most was Koth and Bierke and I were in there, and then we had Dr. Larry Weisenkamp, who's somewhat over 80, helping us. We're getting in another row of these waddles, hopefully before the rain season. I kind of added it up. Collectively, our total ages were a little under 300 years old. Anyhow, manpower is our biggest need. So, I talked today with Kelly Metzger, who's the local rep for Zadik, and he's checked with his chain of command, circulated it up to them, and they're comfortable with the wording in our document, and they're enthused to continue to participate. He had another conflict, wouldn't be able to be here today. And so beyond that, I guess I'll just ask, Scott, if you want to stand up and tell us what the city outlook is.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think it's fortunate for us to get a property like that from the Wagers. It's kind of different, but it's, in the middle of town there, kind of an iconic place. It would be a a good place to have some trails and a good park, at least for no development. So I'm excited about working with you guys and with Dan, at least to get something going. Some of these are trial and error things, and I think it's working pretty well. And you know, one thing of note, I guess you guys don't look a year over 200. But no,
It's the sunblock. It
Yeah.
helps.
Has the city, has your department looked at that and you're okay with this agreement that was recorded?
Yeah, we've looked at it, and we went to the attorney's office, and Justin's one of the assistant city attorneys that's our liaison to the attorney's office, when he didn't have any qualms about anything legal anyway. He just was wanting to make sure we were okay with the terms, I guess, of responsibilities between us and you guys, and I'm okay with that. I've been, you know, working with Dan, we're pretty open about what's going on, so I'll get our guys a little more in tune with what we're doing too. We get a little shorthanded, especially in the summertime, but if we plan it out right, we can sure devote some manpower and some labor to getting things done, so you guys can save your backs a little bit.
Did you have something, Lynn?
I do. Thank you,
Yeah.
first of all, appreciate it. I have a question on, I think, the dialogue in the packet, where it states parks will grant full access as needed. So
What page are you on?
I'm on page 12, sir. Yep, Director Driscoll. Page 12, and so I guess I wonder what that means. Grant full access as needed. So if we're helping pay, and it's taxpayer dollars, what am I missing there?
I don't know.
That you will, or the entity will grant full access as needed for any and all efforts on adjacent.
What paragraph, what, did this, page 12,
Page
which
12.
paragraph, which line?
Page 12,
Towards the bottom of that
the big
paragraph.
full paragraph.
It
Four
just,
lines
that
up.
sounds to me like they're just saying, the Parks Department's saying, if we need to go to the other property, they will grant full access
Access
to
to
get
our
to
property
that
there,
other
yeah.
property.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
the way it's laid out, if they need to.
Yeah, because if
Yeah,
you're coming
and
from
I-
the top,
It's all
you
And I appreciate that. So, are you saying permission is needed, or? I mean, I guess that's what I don't understand,
I think we,
Mr. Chairman.
it's owned by the city, and we, if we're out there working and spending money and having volunteers out there, that we have permission to go on the city property.
So it would be for everybody though, right?
Yes.
It would be for the entire community to go out there.
They want
And
to help us.
volunteers, yeah.
Accurate
Yeah, they wanna
statement.
help us.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
One question I have, we have two existing contracts, and of course, the Uyghurs now have donated it to the city, so wouldn't we say, Dan, we had like $1,200 left on the Uyghur contract?
Yeah.
So that would just go back into our coffers, we would not expend that,
Oh,
you know, because the Uyghurs are out.
right.
So, and then how much do we have left on the Zeke's contract?
I'd have to bring it up.
Seems to me it was like $7,000 or something like that.
7,000, 8,000.
Yeah.
So we haven't expended all the money.
So we haven't spent all the money that we had
on
allocated.
Zeke's
Okay.
project, so would we keep that in effect then?
Sure, it was set up like this is a maximum amount that we
Okay.
can
Right,
spend.
right.
So we have no obligation to try to spend it all, it's just an upper limit.
So the Uyghurs, 1,200 is back.
That's
in-
it.
Right.
It's
We didn't spend it.
for-
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to bring that out.
So currently, this is open to all taxpayers, not just this group. Accurate statement?
Well, it's taxpayer, you mean as far as helping us out to do the work?
Okay, yeah,
We could use some more volunteers.
absolutely, I agree. We volunteered. We just don't, the hours. I've sent a message on that. I wanted something for my kid to do. Okay.
It's 7,500 left on the Sadiq.
Okay.
About the same on LaCroix.
Yeah, we haven't spent all the money on the pro yet either.
Yeah.
So,
Right, and that one's open-ended as far as the time frame
Yeah.
goes, so.
that answers my question. Any other questions?
I guess the only thing kind of related to that would be if you're volunteering on city property like that, me and Dan been through it a little bit, we'll have to either do a sign-up sheet or have a liability waiver, and so it's recognized for
Yeah, 'cause it's city
workers' comp.
property now, right?
City council, yeah. It's
Good information.
Pretty formal but informal,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
pretty easy, so, just so they're recognized for in case something happens.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So would the volunteers access it the same way as before from up above, or since it's not city property, has that changed?
Well, I think the answer is, I mean, that's part of the deal, is these two properties are intertwined, and, you know, and able to work on any one property, we have to be able to work on both. And so really these entities are being asked to just grant each other rights of access, you know, that we can access. So oftentimes we're parking on Sadiq property up top and taking stuff down to what's now the city property. So.
Okay, so looking ahead, ultimately, if this is a park, where would people park their vehicles to access?
I don't know how long it'll be till it's a
Are you
park.
master planning that now, Scott?
Kind of, yeah. I think WIS did a master plan when Uyghurs had it, so we're
Yes.
kind of working off of that. So
Okay.
nothing really solid right now as far as getting it implemented, but definitely working off that plan.
Yeah, I thought there was a plan.
You know, it would be fun. I love our parks, by the way.
Mhm.
Great job. Is to have like a design contest or something, and see what people come up with.
Yeah.
Kind of bring in the community a
For
little
this
bit.
property, you mean?
For this
Yeah,
new
a
park.
lot of times we do, if we do a master plan, we'll have public input, obviously, like when we did Robbinsdale Park, for instance, there was 2 or 3 different times that the community got together and the designers took everybody's opinions and things and put it all together and came up with 2 or 3 different versions of the master plan. So yeah, definitely we could do that.
So you did like a design charrette?
Kind of, yeah.
Any other questions? Motions to approve $24,000 for this project, erosion control project. So all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Scott, for coming down.
Yeah, sorry, I was an hour late, but I was
That's okay.
No
worked
problem.
out pretty good.
Worked out fine, and I'll see if I can get with you sometime in the next week or so to, you know, you and whatever staff of yours
Yeah.
and kind of do a walkthrough and see how your priorities align with
Yep.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just get a hold of me and we can round some guys up. And I like the idea of the grass clippings and the tree branches and whatever, because we do generate some of that stuff. So we can definitely maybe have a way to offload it instead of going to the dump with it.
Yeah.
Well, one of the, kind of an aside, but actually I talked, your brother, Fleming Brothers.
Did you finally get a hold of
Well,
them?
they really don't put up much grass these days. Most of it, they don't bag much of it. But
Oh, they don't?
we've wondered these slopes. How can we get material down there? And I thought, well, maybe we could get commercial grass cutters and just start pushing it over the edge. And there's a few places we could do it. Seeing how well it. I mean, it's like it repels the rain and the sediment's not moving under there. If we could find ways to do that, and it might involve, if we can't find people to bring it in, maybe we get it at the landfill. You'd have to do it like immediately, day one. I mean, sometimes you go out there, they're putting out fires and they're composting. But anyhow, there's a lot of possibilities there. We're not going to cure it overnight, and we'll keep chipping away at it.
I love the idea of community involvement, though, and I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, no, I think so
Especially
too.
if kids were able to be involved and maybe,
We stomped around up there a
That's a
little
great
bit.
idea.
With this property in conjunction with the city property that's already there, I think that was 25, 30 acres.
It's
total.
very close to 30
Nice.
acres with the land around the
Yeah.
water tower there.
So if we get permission from the water department, there's a lot of usable area there too that's not eroded. That
There is a lot of usable
you could
area.
do trails and whatever. So I
That'd
think
be
it'd
amazing.
It could be really cool, and some great views up there too.
Oh, beautiful views.
Yeah.
Well, I think it'd make a good, vision project. I don't know if it might ever go there, but, if you could figure a way to get in a little bit of a picnic area, you're just surrounded by, low income within walking distance. And,
Yeah.
and the nearest one is, and that would require money, way beyond us, but that's not our deal.
It's a great idea,
Settlement in place.
I will say there's a
Good idea.
lot of wildlife and birds in that area
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a nature haven out there.
Yeah,
There's even a couple of deer there once in a while in the fall too.
yeah, there is.
Yeah.
In the Vision Fund, I think the apps would be in 2024 for the 25, 6, and 7
Mm-hmm.
cycles, so that would be something to think about.
Yeah.
Always
Well,
trying
there's
to
plenty
think
of time
project.
to plan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you're able to make it by.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you.
I actually
Thanks,
had just got in my Jeep when you texted me, and I said, I might as well come out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Have a
Yeah,
good
you
evening.
bet.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks, Jason.
See you, everybody.
See,
Hey, see you,
Yep, you
Jason.
bet.
Thanks for
Take
coming.
care.
Item number 12 is approve the annual garage office rent renewal at $450 a month. That's up $50 a month from last year.
The annual period goes from August, so this will
August,
be starting next month.
Do you like it there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
At least we can get in now without a problem.
Yeah, no, you,
Yeah.
It's a great place.
But
That's
it-
just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
really
I mean, I think
nice
it's just,
place.
if he likes it there, then.
Was there about 9 or 10 entities there?
I think
Oh,
it
at
makes sense.
least. It's more than that.
However, remember that it's gonna go up again next year.
Oh,
So
I'm sure.
it's gonna be they tell me 500, so.
Property
Taxes are going up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a comment, kind of information before we make a motion. We talked about this at our executive meeting, and we thought it was a wise idea just to put it on for 1 year. Because I think what we want to try and move forward on, is discuss some co-location with the Black Hills Council of Local Governments and see if we can save ourselves some rent and make ourselves more available on a regular basis to the public. We have not broached that to them yet, but now that we have a 12-month time clock ticking, we need to probably get with that, because it would be a pretty good synergy, I think, in the big picture.
Are you thinking maybe the new building out behind the mall? You might be able to get something out there?
Well, Black Hills Council currently has a place on
Off in east-north.
east-north.
Yeah.
North?
I don't know if they're planning to move or
That's where
not.
the old DOT office was.
Oh,
Well, we've talked about this tangentially several times about how, well, Black Hills Council might have some information, or they might help with a grant, or, they have GIS people that are always there, and so, and we get basically zero walk-in people at the garage,
right.
So.
Because they don't know what's there.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there may be some benefits in the big picture to collaborate more closely with Black Hills Council, and so maybe this will be the impetus to kind of have those, more serious discussions.
When I was with the Rapid City Public Works Department, West Dakota had that kind of relationship, and Ben Nicholas was in charge of that. He was he was the administrator for the West Dakota at that time. It was a bigger area, but anyway, West Dakota had their business, their monthly meetings there. at that place, and they work together to get grants and that sort of thing. Like I said earlier, they got people hired, full-time people for writing grants. So we don't have that resource here.
So I'll follow his lead and I'll make a motion to approve a 1-year annual rent for $450 at the garage.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Thomas. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, that moves us to item 13. The district has to vote on the 2023 levy request. All right.
So on page 27 of your packet is the form we get from the auditor, I believe. And it shows there that their anticipated, or our anticipated income for the next tax year will be $242,443, which is based on a combination of, basically the consumer price index and the number of people in our district that are there, to be levied. So the typical levy, for an individual, I guess I can't say the typical, but from my experience, it's not a significant amount of money. For a home that's based, anywhere from $250,000 to $400,000, you're looking at somewhere between $6 and $10, on a semi-annual, basis. If you're paying your taxes and watching your, your tax.
For the year, that's total $6 or $10?
Semi-annual.
Oh,
So you're gonna get dinged maybe for $20.
Oh, $20.
Or
Okay.
$12, or maybe less, I don't know.
Actually, depending on area, average house in my area is $3 a year.
Okay, so I'm over on area 1, we get stuck for $10.
I'm in area 2, and mine's $6.50, so $13.
Gotta complain. Anyway, so that's the nature of, what goes forward. It says the maximum tax dollars available, but that's basically just what they estimate we're gonna get based on our population and the levies for the people that are within that area. And so, that's kind of the explanation of what it is, and what we need to do is, take action on that at this meeting so that it can be published in the newspaper for the August meeting, where we actually, I think, approve it along with our budget. So we need to take action so we can send this along down the line if that's what we plan to do. That's what we did last year and the year before. There was one time in recent memory where the board at one time decided that they wanted to put a hold on that to, in quotes, make a tax savings for people. And what that does is then that sends us basically into a pattern of a hold, and then we start from that basis for our a levy and the associated income going forward from that year. So this levy that we see this year is probably what would have been the case a number of years ago, if we wouldn't have had a hold placed on our normal levy.
Who puts the hold on?
With the board, Ken.
The
board at that time decided that they were going to save people money, and they put a hold on it.
I don't think it's gonna break them $20 for a year, do you?
Well, my personal opinion is that's not a lot of money as long as we do good things with it, but that's just my personal opinion.
You got a comment? Make a motion.
I'll move that, since I guess we're voting on this instead of, I'm not sure how come it started out as discussion and changed to a voting item, but I'll move that we put in for the maximum amount.
I second.
Seconded by Wendy. Discussion
Yes,
on
sir.
the motion.
I guess, to me, it's not an issue, is it 10 or 12 or $15 a year? To me, we're doing beneficial things with these dollars, and,
Right.
and I think it's the right thing to do the most we can for our water resources.
Very good. Seeing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, item number 14. Discuss the 2023 budget.
And again, this has got my name on it, and I think it's also an action item, because we're gonna need to take action on this to move it forward for our, publication and then subsequent vote in August. So the place to look is, and I'll have Dan help me with this, but it's on pages 28 and 29 of the packet, and the budget is based on essentially what we just did, is approve our income for the upcoming year. And so it takes into account, our existing resources, our anticipated new income, and, the project obligations that we have. And Dan has a little 5-point sheet on how he prepared the budget in terms of, the assets and the liabilities and how we end up with what gets carried over and what, what is our, ending balance at the end of this year, as well as the anticipated end of balance of end of next year. So I don't know if, how detailed we want to go through that. It's kind of a review in some ways of our budget discussion we had today, where at the end of the day, we said we had $257,616.82 worth of expenditures that we were outstanding yet we hadn't paid. So that goes into that calculation on project liabilities on page 28, about midway down through the line.
That second yellow line, probably?
No, it's actually 3 lines up from there where it says project liabilities.
Oh, okay.
That 257,616.82 matches what we just went over in our approved budget for today earlier.
Okay. Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Director? I want to make sure everybody's looking at the latest packet of Big Five.
Oh, okay.
So on the bottom left, I have the file name. It should have a D.
D.
Yeah, D. Okay.
Yeah. So you're correct. That's the liabilities.
And then it shows our projected tax revenue in that second yellow highlight, which we just, moved forward, the 242,443. And it just kind of carries through there, I don't know if I need to go through each number. But that remaining funds at the end of 2023 assumes that we, use the budget that's put forward on the next page, as well as expending all of our liabilities. It includes the Green Valley deal and, the thing we just did for Star Village and, all the stuff that we got for projects right now. And so this is sort of what, this first page, I think page 28, well, actually what goes in the newspaper. Is that correct, Dan?
No, actually.
No, it's even more abbreviated. Oh, the next page.
Yeah.
Oh, the next page goes in the newspaper. Okay.
Page 29.
Yeah, and even an abbreviated form of that.
Okay.
It's mainly the orange column that.
Oh, okay.
The previous page is mainly just to let you know
How we got there.
we're making these decisions.
Yep.
Sure.
So the 2023 budget's that orange column, and that's what'll go in the newspaper. It shows, what we have planned, basically. So what we need to do, unless someone has another idea of how we want to display this or know something different, is to take action on this and then preliminarily approve it to move it to for publication so we can act on it in August.
So moved.
Moved by Dan, is there a second?
A second.
Second by Wendy. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
Yeah,
Thank you, Ron.
Good job, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, for putting that together. Let's see, I don't have any comments today. Are there any items from directors?
Just, I added some stuff to the website. The updated photos for the erosion project, I put under projects. And I just added those as additional.
Good.
So if you have anything, a link or whatever to something that is somewhat involved, has something to do with the, like, send it to either me or Dan, and we can add it to news, because I added, and there's probably something, you know, a video or whatever somewhere about the project. Wasn't that on TV? Didn't you get a little coverage on that?
There was, right there, a year or so ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We got the green roof on TV.
yeah, the green roof was on
That,
TV.
like, if we could find that link, that'd be kind of cool to have on there.
Yeah, that was Jason's project.
Yeah. I can look for it. I can look for that. See if I can't find it.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if anybody
I could
has
ask
seen
Jason
that out at the
for-
airport.
I haven't seen it in real life,
I
just
heard
pictures.
about it, but I haven't seen it.
It's pretty cool.
I never go on the roof when I go to the airport.
Anything that you know.
I didn't get on the roof on the airport.
Well,
I couldn't get past second level.
Yeah.
They don't have enough
There's
clout.
actually a link to their weather station up there too.
Hmm.
Yeah, they have a weather station.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Pretty interesting, actually. Anything else, Jill? You guys,
I just want to say the new website is so pretty, and the work on it. Thank you, whoever did that. But I've been
much
there
better.
several
Yeah,
times. It's easy to navigate
It is.
for somebody that's tech challenged like I am, and
Me too.
But anyway, it's really nice. So thank you.
I did eventually find the meeting schedule, but it's kind of a long ways around. I don't know if it could be.
The tab that says meeting, well,
I guess I better look at it again.
You should.
Anyhow, when you go to,
so if we go to more meetings right here.
yeah, I guess, I mean, that's the way you find it. Then the other way, when you go to 2022 meetings, you can't find it. So I don't know if there's a way to,
Well, if it's confusing, we can talk about, so you're saying
Well,
if you went here.
right, if you go there, 2022
2022,
meetings.
and don't list all the
Maybe
meetings?
we should call it archive, or,
Oh, it just shows the archives.
Yeah,
Don't show the current year.
Right, and anyhow, I thought, well, this'll tell me where.
That's meetings that we've had.
Whether you should show up or
So
not, is that what you're saying?
could you just make an entry there and leave it blank for me, just a blank spot and
or
then
maybe,
leave?
maybe just put another button like this.
Yeah, sure.
Future meetings, you mean?
Yeah, anyhow,
Yeah,
I was specifically looking for that, and it didn't come easy. It's not a big deal.
No, but
If it
people
comes
that are
easy,
looking
it becomes
for it
easy.
just come and show up.
yeah.
Would
If you
like
can't-
to know
If you can't
that.
find it, what about somebody else?
Yeah.
Sure. Yep.
If it comes easy to fix it, it'd be something worth fixing.
I like just having maybe a button. I hate to put future meetings and not
Sure.
have anything in there.
Yeah. We just add them as we go.
We don't normally think too far ahead.
We just add as we go, yeah.
I think that's a good point, Director Driscoll.
Yeah. Items from the admin.
The only thing I have, and maybe some of you saw the new maps, the proposed maps from South Dakota. I didn't have a chance to look at it.
I didn't print them, but I didn't see much difference, to tell you the truth.
I think he probably addressed all the issues. The only thing that kind of bothers me is the verbal description. I gotta look through it. It gets kind of.
Yeah, it's kind of detailed.
Make sure that's right, so. Before it was relatively easy because it was just by precincts and maybe with some exceptions, but now I think he's chopped up precincts and there's no clear legal definition.
Yeah.
It's convenient. That's all I had.
Okay. There's nobody here from the public.
They all left.
They all left.
The meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody coming.
You're gonna make it.
I know, but I'm gonna be in trouble. I'll talk to you guys later.
All right.